Well, I'd like to get started here because I really appreciate everybody's time. But hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Perkins, and thank you for joining us today for our workshop on increasing engagement, productivity, and retention. I have Tom Klein with me here of Better Vantage Point, and I'll be presenting this through Paylocity. Also have my colleague, Chris DePriest, and I'll introduce him here at the halfway point. Now, Tom has spent 30 years as a dealership owner and has worked with both public and private dealers to solve problems, keep customers happy, and stay out of court and the regulatory hearing room. He's an endorsed expert for Dealer Magazine, the Recreational Vehicle Dealer Association, the VIADA, and the CIADA. Tom helps great dealers become even better by uncovering and solving problems that you may not even know about. Tom has experience to help find and fix risky business practices, hidden state and federal legal issues, poor digital reputations, and unintentional advertising violations. He resolves consumer and business disputes, responds to regulatory agency notices, and improves employee HR practices by developing custom employee handbooks. Tom is solely focused on protecting dealerships through tried and true risk mitigation strategies, ensuring the money you make is the money you keep. These are building blocks to help dealers and managers have processes in place to prevent problems and to de-escalate those problems when they do occur. If you have any questions throughout today's presentation, jump right into the Q&A session or chat, and Tom will cover those at the end of the presentation, or you can connect with Tom directly after the session as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tom, and welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. Let me share my screen here. Okay, I appreciate it. We'll hop right in here. What does Lady Gaga have to do with your employee relations? Well, a quote from Lady Gaga, "Trust is like a mirror. You can fix it if it's broken, but if you can still see the crack in the mother's reflection." So if you have a problem, you're going to have to address it. If you've had a problem, then you're still going to have to address it. So the first thing to do is identify your situation. There are 4 different scenarios that you may be in. Number 1 is you have trust with your staff and want to ensure you maintain it. You had trust with the employees, made a mistake, and are working on building back trust. You do not have trust with your team and need to climb out of a hole. Or number 4, you do not have trust and don't even realize you have a problem. Well, if you don't realize you have a problem, today's the first step in making sure you know that you do have a problem. Once you identify which of these situations you may be in, you're on the road to building a culture of trust. Simply realizing where you are is the first step, and don't forget our happy employee here. Remember that when you go back to your regular routine after this webinar. So the first item is how to build genuine rapport. Rapport means you're spending time regularly with the employees, you're showing interest by asking questions, and you're interested in their problems, both personal and professional. Trust starts with rapport, and understand that rapport is a person-to-person interaction. So reaching out and establishing rapport with your team members who you feel that you have trust issues. Some of these people you see every day, and you should be able to tell how they're doing and how you're interacting with them just by looking at them. And when they talk to you, how's their tone? How's their inflection? What's their demeanor? Are they interested in seeing you? Are they not interested in seeing you? Do you get a warm feeling when you see them? Pay attention to both the verbal and the nonverbal cues when you're interacting with them. Be helpful, be consistent, and be respectful of their time. Ask lots of questions of your employees. It's very hard to be consistent. Every day you have to show concern, compassion, and caring. And being respectful of your employees includes stopping some of what I have identified as 9 toxic practices. One of them that I think a lot of managers are guilty of is piling on. Bosses tend to pile on too much work on top of those who are pulling their weight plus some, And piling excessive work onto your workers is going to create resentment. If you have an employee who's highly productive, then you want to build around them and give them a few employees to support the increased workload that you give them. But remember that giving them too much is too much, and that goes against building rapport. Next, be straightforward. Consider your tone, to listen to how you sound. Have you ever gone through the experiment of recording yourself either by video or on audio to see actually how you sound when you're interacting with your employees? Do you know, and have you received that feedback? Could you be coming across harsh and not even know it? For example, when you add another project to an employee's pile, do they smile? Do they have negative body language? How do they receive the information? What's the employee's reaction? You pay attention to these kind of cues. And if you don't know how you're coming across, ask. You feel like you're trying to build rapport that way, or record yourself and then listen to the conversation at a later time. It's a really useful tool to use. Next, show you care. This is a Wall Street Journal article about a tech CEO who, this says, this tech CEO dishes out life advice to his employees' children. His name is Atul Bhatnagar. Every month, he hosts a Zoom session, an AMA or Ask Me Anything session, and the employees' kids are invited to be on there. Not the employees, but their kids, 10-year-olds to college grads. And he feels, and I agree, which is why I put this into our webinar today, leaders have to do a better job of acknowledging the realities that parents are facing at home, specifically during COVID and specifically when they're juggling more things at home. And he had a quote which I appreciate, which said, "So as leaders, we also had a chance to express our compassion and our understanding of the issues." And the way he addressed this was by answering questions, addressing topics such as settling on a college major, choosing the right friends. During his sessions, he expressed the importance of exercise, the importance of health, a wide variety of topics on how to handle bullying, criticism, and personal setbacks. But how extraordinary it is that he thought of this and came up and was creative enough to come up with the solution. I think it's extraordinary. I think it's really a testament to problem solving. And it's one thing if a leader shows that they care about the employees. It's a whole different level if that leader if the employee rather sees their boss trying to help the kids. There is nothing like helping a child. It's really quite something. Be creative in your thinking about how you can build rapport. What can you do? Problem solving can come in a whole variety of forms. It can come in monthly meetings. It can come in daily meetings. It can come in what I call management by walking around, which is just simply you walking through the dealership and being able to greet each employee by name, asking them how they're doing, and that goes a long way toward building rapport, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes. Touch on that now. Management by walking around. I think the visits are important, and I think that the consistency here is also very important. Employees may wait to see you if they know that you regularly come around. They may wait to see you to confront you with an issue or a problem or a concern. Being predictable is a real asset. I think predictability in your personality, predictability in what you ask them for, I think it's a very undervalued personality trait. So try to be predictable. And those visits are important. And then the third point here is treat employees as your internal customers. They really are your internal customers, and you're there to please them. You're there to make sure they're happy. You're there to make sure that their work's getting done. I mean, there's obviously a whole complicated dynamic there. But if you start to treat them as your internal customers, they will feel better. They will feel that love, so to speak, and they will reciprocate. The way they will reciprocate is they'll be more loyal, they'll fix more problems, they'll get more work done, they'll be more productive. All part of building genuine rapport. The next item is open door policy. Open door policy makes it clear that an employee can come see you when their direct report manager is not handling their issues. So having an open door policy does more than just the obvious of your employee being able to come to see you directly to solve the problem. It makes your managers accountable to the employee, because if an employee goes to the manager and the manager isn't addressing the problem, or the manager is the problem, then that creates a different level of accountability. If that employee comes to you and bypasses the manager, then obviously that manager doesn't have the right rapport with the employee. So encouraging that relationship, not only between the manager and the employee, but you and the employee, will help reinforce that all the way through. It follows the chain of command. If they skip that, if the employee doesn't feel comfortable with their manager, then you will clearly find that out, which is a managerial issue. Then you need to manage the manager to ensure that that manager is handling their employees. You want the managers to solve the employees, unless you're the type of leader who wants to make all the decisions themselves, of which that I don't recommend, because it will end up bogging you down. Something very easy and simple and straightforward is, please respond to emails, please respond to texts, and please respond to phone calls. There's nothing more demoralizing for an employee to be waiting for an answer back from you, and work is piling up on their desk and they can't proceed forward because you haven't responded to them. So it's very simple and needs to be done on a routine basis, preferably very timely basis. We touched on this a second ago. Not responding creates stress, it builds animosity, and they can't complete their work. Without getting answers from you, things pile up on their desk. That doesn't feel good to the employee, because it creates stress, because they see the work piling up and it's demoralizing for them. And it's obviously detrimental to the dealership because the work's not getting done. So while the employees should follow the chain of command, so should the bosses. When you, as the boss, break chain of command, you erode the confidence of the managers and the employees who report to the managers. This creates mistrust and wariness for both the employees and for the managers. Monthly monitoring. There's a website called Glassdoor, and it's a website for employees who will rate their employers. And if you haven't looked at it, you should log on today and take a look and see what your rating is. You should monitor this website on a monthly basis. Some employees will review you while they're still employed. Others will wait until they've been dismissed or they quit, whatever the case is. But you should respond to the online complaints in a same non-defensive way that you would with customer complaints. It's usually obvious who posted the review, so I would recommend that you invite that person in, and I put invite, don't summon, because you don't want to be seen again as being demanding. You want to welcome the employee back into your office, even if you think they weren't worth it, but maybe you can learn something about the organization. Oftentimes, I always advocate for exit interviews so that you can find out what the employee may know. They may have a perspective that you may not know. They may be a bad employee. They may not have produced enough, but you may be able to learn something. But invite them to your office. You can try to diagnose where the friction lies. In any event, you can defang that employee to make sure that they don't go to a regulator, that they don't go somewhere else, a lawyer, and cause more problems for you. Here's one particular car dealership. I worked in such and such an automotive group full-time for more than a year. They had great money, but that's about it. The management was a good old boys club. They scam you out of your bonuses and commissions. The only advancement opportunities are for white people, and you sell your soul here. You're all hypocrites. I know many of you don't do business ethically, morally, or legally correct. None of you practice what you preach. So this is not something you'd want on the internet without having a response to it. If you go on your Glassdoor website this afternoon or this week and you want help with how to craft responses, feel free to reach out. I'd be glad to help you. But this is very negative for your business, and you wouldn't want potential employees that you're trying to hire to have this type of public relations out there. Promoting a culture of trust, ensuring employees' pay is at least commensurate with their responsibilities. If you make a promise to an employee, put it in writing, follow up with it to guarantee it's brought to conclusion. Having an employee guidebook, some people call it a handbook. I prefer the connotations of a guidebook because a guidebook guides you. A handbook has more of the connotation that everything's included. So if you have a policy that doesn't actually make it into the handbook, the employee may say, well, I never knew about that, and I don't have to, I didn't know I had to do that, and it's not part of it, and they give you that whole rigmarole. So I like to call it a guidebook. But having a complete guidebook, clearly communicating your expectations about vacations and paid holidays and sick pay and days off, having all that very clear, so when you enforce it, you say it's in the guidebook, versus they'll feel like you're meddling with them if it's not in there. And that, again, erodes trust and creates anger. And then we talked about this earlier, treating employees as your valued assets because they are the heart and the soul of your business. And that is what continues to run your business. And finally, another Lady Gaga quote: you have to stop crying and you have to go kick some ass. So off to work you go. I hope a few of these hints have helped. Again, afterwards, if you'd like to ask questions, be glad to answer them. You can reach out afterwards. I'd be glad to send you the deck if it's something that's interesting to you. Here is my contact information. So now back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. And now what I'd like to do for the next 15 or so minutes is just to take a sneak peek at Paylocity's modern HCM platform, specific to some of the areas that you talked about here today, Tom. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Chris DePriest, which he'll be able to take us through a high-level overview. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Tom. And as we look at what Paylocity offers from a solutions perspective, it begins with the onboarding process. Building that genuine rapport, as Tom mentioned, starting that off with just an introduction. It could be a video, having that employee be well aware of what's expected. Again, policies, you can see a variety, introduction to the team, and then specific tasks that would be available to the employee. Again, the guidebook, as Tom referenced, to be available. So that is there front and center. And then, when you think about from an employee perspective as well, now that they've started, having the ability to have convenience and access to various areas of the solution that you would like to provide. And for most employees, what we see at Paylocity is the use of their device. This is a convenience for the employee. And it really can start from, Tom mentioned about walking around, the introductions, knowing your employees by name. And that really comes down to journaling as well. When you think about performance and documenting what you see as you walk around, to be able to provide context to the employee, that if you wanted to provide an update for them, you'd have the ability that you could record a video, and you could now have that visual with your device to record the message of what you saw, or for the employee to be able to, at the end of the day, describe what went well, what were the challenges. And now that a manager has the ability to see the expressions, to hear the tone, and really put context to what is being said, versus trying to just interpret that from a video or from a just general text at that point. So it really allows a lot of flexibility. Again, it's convenient for the employees and for the supervisors, and the ability to continue to make comments to these posts. And these are things that really get captured into the employee's record at their performance reviews. And when you think about disciplinary situations where risk is going to come involved, to have that documentation, and again, to have those messages recorded by managers that can be shared with the employees and vice versa as your documentation, it can go a really long ways in supporting your case at that point. And also just the ability to have the responsiveness. We have a solution called Community, which is an embedded collaboration tool within Paylocity. And this allows for you to have transparent communication with your employees, to be able to post announcements, to be able to create groups. Groups can be set up as public or private. So you've got the ability that an employee can ask a question that could be part of the group. So you could have 439 employees in this instance, see the response and see the communication, see the reactions, watch the video from leadership as it's announced in real time. You're getting that immediate feedback. You're seeing the questions and the reactions come in. But then you've got instances where, let's say for an HR perspective, an employee has that single chain of command that they can ask a private question related to their specific case. And that goes directly to HR, that goes directly to payroll, that goes directly to benefits. So the correct individuals at a leadership level are the ones that are receiving those questions. And then they have the ability that they can respond and they can solve those questions. And then what that does for you all at a leadership perspective is it creates a repository of previously asked questions. Now that you have a reference point to how did we answer that in the past, has it changed? And then you've got this this list of previous questions that you can reference back to. So it replicates a help desk environment, but it streamlines your efforts as far as who should answer, who are the experts that should answer those questions when they come in from employees. So you have a lot of consistency that is part of that. You also have part of this as well as you think about just that chain of command. We refer to these as HR actions. So when you think about instances that happen on a daily, weekly basis within your dealerships, it's that when this process exists and these changes are being made to an employee record, so at a supervisor level, we've got different shadings here that just shows us what it was and what was changed. It shows you both perspectives, the old values, the new values. But more importantly, it identifies what the workflow is. So when you think about who should be part of this process, so when this gets submitted, who does it go through? Who do we want it to go through? Does it go through 4 people? Does it go through 8? Does it go through 1? Who has the ability to review it, decision it, and approve it? And then who should be notified that this has occurred? So again, a lot of transparency, visibility, but to keep that chain of command intact so that you have the correct individuals making the appropriate decisions as you work through your workflows and approvals at that point. And Tom referenced the Glassdoor aspects. And when you think about, well, what does that look like within Paylocity? It's surveys. It's the ability to ask for feedback, to check the pulse of the organization, maybe at the beginning, 30 days after you were hired. Is it what you thought it was going to be? Tell us. We want to learn from your experience so that can impact others. What is it from a year from now? Maybe we do this on an annual basis to check, because if you have the ability to be proactive and get the feedback before it gets to a position that it is a post on Glassdoor and it's a negative that could impact the business, you can identify what trends are happening within the organization by a reoccurring basis, or in some instances, just do this as an exit interview and send this out to then get that feedback. So you've got multiple ways that you can accomplish, and you can see the results of your surveys at this point. But that information and that feedback that is being provided really can set you up for success as you move forward, and what type of changes the organization should consider based on the feedback of employees. There's another area here that Tom referenced too, is when you think about just the feedback, it's having the ability, we refer to this as impressions, but impressions is peer-to-peer recognition. And you've got the ability to really leverage this in a lot of different ways. But if you think about the nature of your business, is you have others that are going above and beyond every single day throughout your dealerships. It's the ability to recognize when someone steps in, covers, maybe a client came in earlier from what their appointment was, or for service. That happens on a daily basis. And it's difficult for leadership to see those instances or hear about those just because how busy the day gets. And this allows employees to give shout outs and recognize each other. And then that visibility comes back to leadership so that they can see those instances. And it's a great way to log it. Again, that can tie into performance. But again, just a lot of the things that may be unknown. And this really creates that culture of we care. We love where we work, and we recognize that you're going above and beyond, and you can create banners. Again, you can recognize any of your employees. And I'll conclude with the one aspect of Paylocity that when you think of culture of trust, how we accomplish this at Paylocity when you're a client is one of the ways that we accomplish this is through our Modern Workforce Index. And what you see here is it's the transparency within our solution, is that we realize that clients make an investment and they would like to see a return on that investment. So at Paylocity, we identify that. We allow you to make your own assumptions as you feel like the time savings, so that you can see the cost of what you're, if you're reducing this workflow from 30 minutes to 10 minutes, then how does that translate from a cost standpoint? And we also incorporate the utilization of the solution. It's really understanding gaps so that you can maximize, you can put a plan in place to understand, well, how do we increase usage within these areas that we've signed up for and that we're paying for within Paylocity? And we'll guide you along that way. So we'll help you increase your scores. But again, that's just part of the transparency that we offer in creating that trust so that you can utilize the solution to the fullest degree and maximize your savings. Ryan, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was a great, quick little, I'd say commercial, some of the highlights in the areas that we're able to help differentiate in the marketplace. We definitely look forward to continued conversations with all our guests who were able to make it here today. Appreciate the time that you spent with us, and we'll definitely be able to give you back a little bit more of your lunch hour here. Tom, any concluding words?
I really enjoyed Chris's presentation and him tying in those specifics that Paylocity's software can do. Obviously, that would support everything he said, supports what I said, and will help the engagement process with your employees and help that trust factor. So I was impressed with his presentation and appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. Really do appreciate your time, both of you as well, Tom. And again, we hope everybody has a great rest of your day and the rest of the week, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.